We continue with our discussion of Second Act by Henry Oliver. This is the fourth part of our interpretation. Today's theme is age. On our channel, we've often emphasized that age is not a problem. We've covered numerous books and studies proving that many people retain high levels of creativity and action well into old age. But no matter how much I talk about it, you might still have doubts. After all, in real life, we often see people deteriorate as they age. So are the cases in the books just exceptions? Or even merely there to offer emotional motivation? Today, let's look at several new research findings from this book. These findings are not only informative, but also perspective-shifting. They may genuinely change the way you think. Let's begin with a framework for thinking about age. First, you have to acknowledge that age is an objective reality. If you've never played football before turning 30, I think it's safe to say you're not going to make the national team. No issue there. But Einstein once said that, if a person hasn't made a major scientific contribution by age 30, they never will. Mathematician Hardy claimed mathematics is a young person's game. Others argue that if a professional hasn't become independent by 35, they'll never be a master. Are those statements also true? Can they be compared to football? The key question is whether you believe intelligence declines with age, like physical ability. The answer is, it's complicated. We need a bit of Stoic philosophy here. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, 121 to 180, in his Meditations, proposed a method of thinking. He said if you're afraid of something, don't treat it as one big whole. Break it down into smaller parts and deal with them one by one. For example, if you're nervous about a job interview tomorrow, what exactly are you afraid of? Is it the commute? Your outfit? The Q&A? List them and tackle them individually. Each part you handle reduces your fear a little. The same applies to aging. If aging makes people dumber, let's ask, how does that happen? Is it a drop in raw intellect? Is it becoming more conservative in thought? Or just losing the desire to work? As the saying goes, the more specific, the deeper the insight. Let's not leave vague questions untouched. Let's dissect them. Here are 4 new insights. 1. Aging follows general patterns, but with enormous individual differences. There's a study about writers. Young writers often switch themes frequently. But around their 30s, this rate of change slows down significantly. Later, some might spend decades writing on a single theme. Clearly, they're getting older, right? On average, yes. But the most important finding of the study wasn't the overall trend. It was the individual differences. Some writers found their best theme and stuck to it. Others kept exploring new ones throughout their lives. People vary tremendously. Now a more systemic study. In the 1930s and 40s, researchers gave IQ tests to over 150,000 11-year-olds. 70 years later, another group tracked down several hundred of those same individuals and gave them similar IQ tests. In each test, subjects were ranked, with the median score set as IQ 100. The goal? To determine whether IQ changes with age. The result was a chart. Each dot represents a person. The distribution follows a 45-degree diagonal, meaning that on average, someone's IQ at 80 was about the same as it was at 11. If you were smart as a child, you were still smart in old age. But that's just the macro trend. The real takeaway is the massive variance. One person had an IQ of 100 at 11, but only around 40 at 80. Another scored 80 as a child, but reached 115 as an elder. What happened? Were they lucky, or did they take some magic elixir? We don't know. Researchers have looked into many factors, and the only consensus is, there's no single method that significantly boosts IQ. Regular exercise, healthy eating, no smoking or heavy drinking, good sleep, mentally challenging work, brain games. All help a bit. But the effect of any one factor is small, and causation is hard to prove. We've previously discussed superagers who stay sharp into their 80s and 90s. Their secret may be social activity and curiosity, but there's still no definitive conclusion. The key point: humans are complex. Yes, there are general trends. But as a unique individual, you may not follow them. You're not obliged to follow them. As we discussed earlier, if you change your environment, work with smarter people, take on new challenges, your trajectory might shift entirely. Macro trends are just that. Macro. The micro contains variance. And your opportunity lies in the variance. 2. Intelligence is not a single ability. IQ measures general intelligence, but only relative to others. If we want to track cognitive aging, we need to break intelligence down into at least 3 parts: fluid intelligence, crystallized intelligence, and processing speed. Fluid intelligence is your ability to acquire, understand, and manipulate new information. Crystallized intelligence refers to your accumulated knowledge, like vocabulary. According to a 2015 book, the aging curves look roughly like this. Fluid intelligence and processing speed peak around 30, then decline. Crystallized intelligence peaks near 30, but continues to rise until about 60, then declines very slowly. So yes, middle-aged folks may not be as fast at math or chess as younger ones. But they might still excel at writing or teaching. That's already encouraging, but newer research shows this breakdown is still too simplistic. A more recent study divided intelligence into 20 to 30 subcategories. Short-term image memory, short-term story memory, long-term facial memory, comprehension, vocabulary, arithmetic skills, and more. The aging curves for each are wildly different. For example, your ability to memorize faces peaks around 16 to 17. But vocabulary, comprehension, and retention may peak in your 50s, 60s, or even 70s. The variance is huge. In reality, some people retain strong mathematical or strategic thinking even in old age. Cognitive ability isn't like playing football. And we haven't even talked about wisdom yet. IQ and wisdom are perpendicular skills. Wisdom, the ability to make sound judgments, increases with age. And personal traits matter too. Perseverance, diligence, curiosity, openness. All influence your trajectory. So if someone says a person is too old or not sharp anymore, they're likely making 2 mistakes. They haven't specified which ability has declined, and they've ignored individual differences. 3. When you start doesn't matter. What matters is how much time you invest. The 10,000-hour rule of deliberate practice says you need to invest 10,000 hours to achieve expert-level skill. It doesn't say when to start. Like Mozart, you can start young. Or you can begin as an adult. As long as you get your 10,000 hours in. Young people have fewer obligations and more time to train. Adults have more responsibilities. It may be harder to carve out the time. That, more than age itself, is the real obstacle. There's also something called the constant probability of success theory, which says that once your skill reaches a certain level, each new work has the same chance of being a hit. So the best strategy for success is to produce a large volume of work. This applies to science, writing, art, music. You name it. For Picasso, Shakespeare, or a scientist, the odds of a big hit stay constant. If someone had many breakthroughs over a few years, it's probably because they produced a lot during that time. Success favors output. That's why young scientists often seem brilliant. They're not necessarily smarter, just more aggressive and prolific. Once they gain status, they may slow down. Without continued output, no great work will emerge. But studies show that scientists who keep publishing extensively into middle and late age still maintain high odds of major discoveries. Why aren't there great Stephen Chow movies anymore? Not because he's old, but because he's not making them. By contrast, Tom Cruise, born the same year, is still delivering hits. 4. The Q factor. We've discussed this before when talking about Barabasi's The Formula, but Oliver's book adds new depth. The constant probability theory says a scientist's chance of success is stable for that individual. But what determines the differences between individuals? That's the Q factor. Some people produce 1 excellent paper out of every 5. Others churn out 20 mediocre ones. The Q factor explains this disparity. What affects Q? Possibly collaboration skills, communication, education level, learning ability. All play a role. Oliver summarizes two academic explanations. 1. Knowledge transferability. Can you apply what you've learned in one field to another? This is known in AI circles as generalization. 2. Idea connection ability. Can you spot elegant, surprising correlations in seemingly mundane situations? To me, both definitions speak to the same thing: your ability to connect ideas. We've said many times, creativity is the connection of ideas. If you know materials science and biology, and you find a biological mechanism that helps create a new material, you've made a breakthrough. Barabasi said, the Q factor doesn't change with age. High Q individuals stay high Q. Low Q ones stay low. It likely correlates with your willingness to explore new things. 100 years ago, the quantum revolution was led by physicists in their 20s and 30s. Today, physicists usually make breakthroughs after 40. That's not because the field has aged, but because physics is now far more complex. You can't just scribble ideas on paper anymore. You need data, analytical tools, teamwork, and more. AI may accelerate things, but overall, you need more preparation. IQ follows a normal distribution. A score of 140 isn't that different from 110. But knowledge, experience, and wisdom accumulate. They compound. They follow a power law distribution, meaning the differences between people become vast with age. That's the opportunity for older individuals. A kind of patience capital. Hopefully, today's talk has given you a better handle on age. And next time you face a challenge, don't forget Marcus Aurelius's method. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.